Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to learn about how TWC works for government, political science, and international relations majors. For those of you who may not be aware, the Washington Center is a nonprofit organization who partners with colleges and universities across the country to help students do an internship in their field and earn academic credit for it. My name is Lauren Johnson. I've been at the Washington Center for 5 years, and I am very familiar with the power of a transformative internship experience because I had a couple of them. So this is definitely something I believe in. And I'm joined by my co-host, Sarah Elwell. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah. I work in site relations here at the Washington Center, which means I manage relationships with a bunch of the different internship sites, find out what they're looking for when they're hiring, and help you get positions there.
So Sarah is clearly our expert at this panel. I'm going to briefly, very briefly, go through kind of what the Washington Center is and what our program looks like. So if you're already very familiar with us, feel free to skip like 2 minutes ahead. And then we'll get into Sarah, and we'll talk to her about what these internship sites are looking for and what kind of sites might be available to you based on your field of interest. So a couple of housekeeping things. Obviously, we're using Zoom for this webinar. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see audio settings. If you are having trouble hearing me right now, you can turn that up. You can use the chat function if there's a technical issue or something we need to know. But most of all, we would love you to use the Q&A function. This will allow you to submit questions throughout the presentation, and then we'll kind of do a Q&A session at the end and go through all the questions that come in. So before we jump in, I just want to address the elephant in the room, and that's COVID-19. This year has been one of a lot of uncertainty, and I know that even if you're thinking to next year, trying to plan what you're going to be doing next year, especially if you're looking for an internship or you're graduating next year, it's really hard to plan ahead. So one of the priorities that the Washington Center has set out to do this year is to be able to serve our students no matter the circumstances, no matter what else is going on with COVID or anything else in the world. And we've been able to do that over the past year by offering our program in a couple different ways. On your screen, you can see kind of the three main ways that students have participated with us this year. And these are kind of the methods we're supporting over the next year. We do want to be able to serve students wherever they are. So we are offering opportunities for students to live in DC, do an in-person internship in DC, and take our online programming. We've had some students who have lived in DC and done a remote internship and then also done our online programming. And then we've had some students who have done the program completely remotely. So they are living at home, they're doing their remote internship, and then they're joining us for our online programming from home. So a lot of these things are dependent on a lot of different things, as you can imagine. It depends on your internship site. So for example, this fall, we have a lot of students, the majority of students are living in DC, but they're actually doing remote internships. And a lot of that is just based on the fact that a lot of internship sites are not open right now, and their employees are working from home as well. So they are still very much getting that full DC professional experience. They're getting their internship, but they're not physically in an office. That's actually what we expect most for spring 2021. We're already kind of expecting that we will be able to host students in DC like we're doing right now this fall, but a lot of our internship sites have indicated that their interns will be working remotely. So that's kind of the option that that we're most familiar with, I think, right now, and the option that we expect for spring. But all of these are on the table, especially if you're thinking ahead to summer or fall 2021. There's three different parts of the internship program. One, the huge part, is obviously the internship. When you're with us in DC, you're also taking an evening course one night a week, and you're also engaging in our career readiness programming. So today we are very focused on the internship, and you obviously get a ton out of our internship, but the Washington Center is so much more than an internship experience. Our main goal is to provide the connections and the tools and the insights that you need to launch a career you'll love. So you're getting that experience through your internship, but the rest of the program really builds on that and helps you maximize the full experience. So in your internship, we partner with over 400 organizations in DC and across the country, And that's so that we can work with students of all different backgrounds. You guys are honestly kind of our bread and butter. We get a ton of students interested in political science, which makes sense because we're based in DC. We also get a ton of students interested in international relations and government. So honestly, this presentation isn't as hard as some other fields because there are so many opportunities in DC for these majors. One of the things that we really, I guess, focus on in our internships is the fact that you're getting a worthwhile experience. You have projects that you're owning, you're working with an internship site supervisor, and all TWC internships have those hallmarks. So how do we get you this internship? This is also a big part of our program. We have an internship matching process that starts after you're accepted and you meet with your advisor. This is a time where they will be asking you what your background is, what your interests are, you know, if you have an idea of what you're coming in with, and then they will pass your application materials along to different internship sites. You'll talk to those internship sites. You might get a couple internship offers, usually like 1 to 3, and then ultimately you'll land that internship that you're excited about, and our internship site is excited about having you. So now that we've kind of gone over what the internship looks like and what the internship matching process looks like, I would like to turn it over to Sarah to talk specifically about how this works for government, international relations, and political science students.
Yes, thanks, Lauren. Excited to be with you. As I said, I work with about 150 of our different partners in the DC area. So wanted to go through some examples for you of what sort of organizations we partner with and the types of internships that you might expect. And so when we're thinking about political science and government, there's actually a bunch of different areas that different internships are available in. And so I wanted to go through kind of 4 of those major areas with you, just to give a few examples. And so to start, probably the thing that you're expecting the most, partisan politics. There are a bunch of different internship opportunities in this area, whether it be from Hill offices to other different organizations off the Hill. I would say that I have noticed since COVID has started here that there have been fewer opportunities available on the Hill, but there were more opportunities this fall than there were in the summer. So I'm expecting that trend to continue, which is great. Then another different division would be lobbying and special interests. So I just gave a few different examples of organizations I work with here, whether it be Guide Consulting, for example, is healthcare. Civic Enterprises does some work with education, just to give a few examples of the type of areas. And let's take a look at our other examples. So advocacy and federal government. There are lots of different advocacy policy sort of roles here in DC. Just a few listed here. Meals on Wheels, you might be familiar with. It's a national organization that serves meals to seniors, has been extremely important during the pandemic. The NAACP, working for the rights of people of color all over the United States. The American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, that's an example of a smaller organization working on a particular issue here in DC. For federal government positions, there are a bunch of these as well. A few listed here are completely different sorts of opportunities, but just wanted to give you an idea. Small business administration, of course, has been really important recently and in the news because of the coronavirus relief that they were putting through for small businesses. The Environmental Protection Agency, the FTC has a law-related position. In the Department of Justice, I actually work with a communications position in the executive office there. So that just gives you an idea of the different scope and types of organizations that might be available in this field. And so then I wanted to give you a bit of an idea of what internships might look like. So different internships have different tasks, and not all of them are the same. And So just to give a few examples, this is an internship description from an organization on the Hill. And you can see you'd be doing some operations work. Often I know this individual covers the phones, works with different offices, gets a chance to interact with constituents. There's also usually research components and components of writing briefings and emails and working with documents on the Hill. Let's take a look at another example. A lobbying internship that I work with. You can see here, again, a lot of writing in these sorts of roles, doing memorandums, attending briefings, and being able to write up things to be able to send to different clients. Often you might be helping organize communications. You might be helping with research on pending legislation and trying to help different folks advance their goals. Let's take another look at another example. This would be an advocacy one. Again, a little bit similar in tracking legislation and trying to advance certain priorities important to the organization. Also, often these are tied in with events and looking to get your work and issue out in front of people who make decisions. There's also often a lot of work with communications and members, as you could see there. And so that gives you just a little bit of an idea of the type of organizations and the type of work that you would be doing, which I hope is helpful for you all. I do also have a few tips that I was asked to put together just based on what I see. First is, in particular, if you're looking to work for the federal government, often I have supervisors ask me for folks who are neutral. They're looking to make sure that essays are on neutral issues and aren't too partisan, because folks in those roles have to work with everyone. Make sure your issues essay is really well written. A lot of internships in political science and government do have writing components, and supervisors are looking for that. And then I also advise you to share the issues that you're most passionate about with your pre-arrival advisor. You never know what types of organizations we might be working with at the moment. And it's great to have a few different ideas of the sorts of things that you're interested in. And you might be able to interview with a few different places and get a feeling for what that might be like. So that kind of wraps up political science and government as an introduction there. Now international relations, again, wanted to give you an idea of a few different types of organizations. So first would be international development. And so these are two international development organizations that I work with. That's a chance to work on international issues. It could be anywhere from economics to working with USAID, humanitarian and human rights category. So you can see a few examples here. I'm sure you recognize the Peace Corps, which is headquartered here in DC. You also can see for different specific issues areas. So Shared Hope International, for example, works to combat human trafficking. And the Cindy American Political Action and Awareness Center works on Cindy issues. Let's take a look at a few of the other examples. Working with kind of foreign affairs. So for example, a different embassy that you might need to speak Spanish and work there, or the Kurdistan Regional Government Representation. So the Kurds don't have a specific country, but they're recognized and they have a government representation here in DC. There's also think tanks. I think a lot of people are often interested in this area. They tend to be in the research division, but can also have opportunities in communications and events as well. These tend to be pretty competitive, and many of them you do have to apply on your own for. So something to keep in mind, but absolutely a possibility. Let's take a look at a few internship examples. So first, what work might look like in international development. You might be supporting business development, which means reaching out to new possible clients, working on proposals. You might have to do program logistics and organizing meeting schedules. You might work on data management. You might help on bids that the company is specifically looking for at the moment, as well as research and supporting current projects that are happening in different areas around the world. Another example would be in the humanitarian section. So for example, with this particular internship, you'd be doing a lot of research and writing, make sure to contribute details to that newsletter. You might be tending different remote events and writing up briefings on that. You also would be trying to get your issues in front of people who matter. And so that's an important part of this role, as well as organizing your own events to promote awareness on your issue. Let's take a look at another example, just another different type of humanitarian internship. This one is specifically in grants, which is a huge division of this area. And so you'd get a chance to get an introduction into that world, a chance to work with those databases, do different research. Sometimes it has a financial component. You'd also get to collaborate with the different teams and do communications out to on important issues in this area. So let's take us into the tips. The first, when it comes to international relations, any foreign language skills that you have, particularly if you're fluent or highly conversational, that is very important to make sure you're mentioning and highlighting. You also, again, want to have really strong writing skills. Spend some time on that issues essay because that is going to be something supervisors are reading to get an idea of what you write like. And then I would say be open to a lot of different types of opportunities. Particularly in international relations, there can be positions all over the board. I have a position, for example, within international relations organization that would be in human resources, or that would be managing a particular program, or that would be in grants or in communications or events, all different sorts of departments that get you exposure to this area.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So I've seen a couple questions coming in, so we're going to go through those. The first one that I wanted to address, and Sarah, if you'll take this one, I think that would be perfect. So this student is asking, do they need to have a specific idea of the internship that they want when they come to their advising session? Or is it okay if they don't have a specific idea?
That is a great question. It is absolutely okay if you don't have a specific idea. I would say most students coming in actually don't have a specific idea. They might have an area they're interested in, or they might think, I think grants and proposals sounds interesting, but I'm open to other ideas. And that's the sort of thing we want to be able to help you with. Ideally, you'll get introduced to a few different types of opportunities. You might have 2 to 3 interviews. They might be at in different sorts of positions, maybe a grants internship or an international development. So I think that having your mind be a little bit open to the sorts of opportunities is where you have the best chance of finding a good fit.
Thanks, Sarah. I can answer this question. So this student is asking, if the internship is in person, what does the online programming entail? Great question. And I did kind of, I guess, breeze over this because we are obviously very focused on the internship in this seminar, but our online programming it's a mix of professional development workshops, networking events, and career exploration events, and then also one-on-one advising. So like I said, this part of the program that is, we kind of refer to it as like career prep, but it is meant to build on your internship and make you reflect on what you're learning, kind of reflect on what you like and what you don't like, and not like hold your hand, but like push you to realize, okay, maybe this isn't exactly what I want to do, but like, what do I need to do in order to figure that out, in order to figure out what my next step is going to look like? So the professional development events are focused on like getting you ready for the job market. So polishing your LinkedIn, practicing your interview skills. The career exploration events are typically like panel discussions with professionals in the field so that you can kind of get a sense of what the field looks like, what they hate about it, what they love about it, maybe what they would have done differently in their career. Networking events, these are typically like when we're connecting you with either our alumni or different professionals that we're connected with. And so, you're able to learn from them a lot. I mean, I think my biggest piece of advice is like, talk to people in your field and figure out, get advice from them. And then finally, we have one-on-one advising available with your career advisor, and you will be assigned a career advisor. So you'll kind of have a go-to person to work with throughout your time with the Washington Center, just to figure out like, I have this goal, like, how should I go about achieving that? So I definitely encourage you. I mean, we have your email address from this webinar, so we'll keep in touch with you, and you can certainly learn more about our career readiness prep through those emails and through our website. But it's a really cool part of the program. Let's see. So, have you ever had a case where a student didn't get accepted into any internship? Sarah, you can certainly weigh on this probably better than me. My understanding is that if we start working with you, like, we're pretty committed to working with you until we find something that's a good fit. Typically, if we talk to you, if you have your advising session, we send your materials out to different internship sites. If none of those work out, we typically go back to the drawing board and we say, okay, something's not matching up here. Maybe go through like why you didn't like this internship site, or what we should be looking for differently that we didn't hit the first time. Sarah, what would you say to that question?
Yes, no, I wouldn't be worried about that. We're here to help you through the process. We work with a number of different organizations, and we will help you if you're struggling with interviewing and we're getting that feedback. We're going to reach out to do a mock interview with you. We're going to help you walk through that process. I would say that it is important to note that that doesn't mean you're always going to get your top choice. Just like the way the job industry works when you start applying after graduation, sometimes somebody gets picked over you. And that is the way of the world. But we will introduce you to other different types of opportunities. The only time I can think that we didn't find someone what they were looking for or an opportunity is if they were very specific. They came in with an idea, I want to work only for this organization. And we, of course, aren't miracle workers. We cannot make one specific thing happen. What we can do is introduce you to a bunch of different types of possibilities and help you along the way in securing those roles. So no, I would not be worried about not ending up with an opportunity.
This student asks, is the GPA requirement, is the GPA requirement mandatory for international relationship internships? So we have like the Washington Center's GPA requirement. So when you're applying to us, we do have a GPA requirement of 275. We are flexible on that. So it's typically that if you don't have that GPA, we ask for a second recommendation letter just to, vouch for you extra. But Sarah, I did want to see if you wanted to talk about like special requirements for different fields. Like to this student's point, are there different requirements for some international internships and other things?
That's a great question. I mean, there are different requirements for many internships, just like when you're looking for jobs in the workforce. Some, for example, would require a specific fluency in a different foreign language. For example, as I mentioned earlier, the Embassy of El Salvador, to intern there, you have to be fully bilingual and fluent in Spanish and English. There would be other different organizations. I know, in particular, some of the think tanks do have specific GPA requirements to apply. So when I mentioned earlier, the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, you have to have a minimum of 3.2 GPA. They're not flexible on that. So it's really dependent on the organization. Also, some internships, particularly in federal government, do a background check as part of their kind of process to admit you. And that's really important to know as well, in particular for the Department of Justice and a few other specific organizations like the U.S. Marshals. There are questions about illegal drug use, which cannot have happened in the last year, and that would include marijuana, which is illegal federally. So there are specific things I think that come up, but we help you through that process. So what I would say is, just like the real job market, you won't be eligible necessarily for every position. But that doesn't mean that there aren't a bunch of positions that might be a really great fit. But yes, there might be a supervisor who's looking for someone to have taken classes in communications. As well as international relations. There might be a supervisor who is looking for specific interest in human trafficking and wants to know, have you been involved with that in your community? So there are a bunch of different types of things. But again, that's why myself and our pre-arrival advisors are there to help you through that process, find which ones you're eligible for, and then see what we can match with your interests.
Sarah, I'm wondering if you can answer this. This student is interested in knowing if there are internships available for aspiring trial attorneys. What would be your recommendation for that student?
Yes, great question. Law is actually something that comes up pretty often that I think it's helpful to talk through. Really good law internships are for law students. I think it's important to know that going up front, that when those when attorneys are relying on you, it's usually when you're at the law student level. That said, we do have opportunities available in law for undergraduate students. I don't have any that would be like in trial law where you would get to be in a courtroom. You've got to get up to law school for that. But I do have internship opportunities that would expose you to law. So for example, from what I listed earlier, the Federal Trade Commission, they have opportunities in law. It's actually a fascinating internship. I also have ones in international relations. The International Center for Missing and Exploited Children does law research internationally related to human trafficking. There also could be law internships related to different specific issues. For example, Rising for Justice is an organization that does a lot of pro bono work. I know they work on a lot of issues related to housing here in DC. You might be able to assist with that. I also work with an immigration law firm where you would be able to, again, assist with communicating with clients. But as for specifically getting in the courtroom, I think that might be mostly a law school thing.
Thanks, Sarah. So this student asks a very good question that we get often. Are there cases where the internship that you have in DC turns into a job? The anecdotal answer is yes. Like, I'm aware of plenty of students where that has been the case. What I will say is that it is very dependent, obviously, on your internship and if they're hiring and that sort of thing. It's dependent on you, though. This is the kind of opportunity that I feel like the Washington Center gives you so many tools and so many opportunities. And some students really make the most of it, and they are like contacting everyone that they know, and they're networking really hard, and they're attending, they're going to different like virtual or in-person events in DC. They're talking to everyone. This is the kind of program that I think can just like totally open your opportunities and open your eyes to everything out there. But you have to be mentally ready for it. You kind of have to psych yourself up, especially if, I'm shy, like I'm an introvert. Networking is hard for me. So I have to like constantly give myself pep talks to be able to do that. And so I think if students really come in prepared and ready to make this experience count, those types of, oh, I got a job, or, oh, this connection that I met in DC ended up getting me like another internship, or I found this cool opportunity through this like friend that I had in DC. All of those things are on the table. You just kind of have to be ready to like claim them, if that makes sense. So the answer is yes. We also certainly don't promise like, yeah, we're a job placement agency. That's how we work. Don't promise that. We do, we work with you to land that internship. We give you a lot of tools to make the most of that internship. And then a lot of it resides in the student and them being like, I'm going to make the most of this. Like, I'm going to get as much out of this as I can. So that was a great, I think, overall question to end on. However, if you do have other questions, you can obviously contact us at any time. You will get an email with this recording of this webinar. So feel free to just reply to that email and reach out to us. But if you have a question right now and you want it answered, you can always email us at info@twc.edu, and we are happy to get back to you. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. And everyone, hope to be in touch with you soon.